Well, I've lived in the area my whole life. I grew up in Lake Barcroft, but I went to school in Alexandria. After college and law school, I came back here in 1972 and have been here living in Alexandria ever since. My entire family goes back 5 generations in the D.C. area in Washington and Northern Virginia. So we're from here by coincidence, or excuse me, not by coincidence, by happenstance. I was born in Illinois, the only member of the family not born here because my father was stationed there delivering babies in World War II. Alexandria is unique, as many people know. It's a city unto its own in a large metropolitan area. But it's a wonderful city. It's a community unlike any other community, unlike Fairfax, Loudoun, or anything else. It's unique in so many different ways and has, of course, a storied history. So from that perspective, it's a great place to live, but it also is filled with wonderful people. I mean, my life has been, I started my law firm here, continued my law practice largely out of Alexandria. My children have grown up here. They've gone to the public schools. They've gone to MacArthur Elementary, which is incredible. They've gone to GW. They've gone to T.C. Williams, and they've gone on to Stanford University. And now I'm going back through that whole routine again with a 12-year-old who just matriculated into GW from MacArthur, so I'm going through the process again. You know, to say why Alexandria, it's not, it'd be nice to say it was by choice, but the fact is that my parents were deeply involved in Alexandria in the medical community. My father was an OBGYN here. My mother served on many boards at Alexandria Hospital in the Twig. And so again, just by the relationship of the family with so many people in Alexandria, it's always been my home. And so it's where I've always been most comfortable with. And I desired after law school to come back here because of all of those relationships and the strong sense of feeling I had for the community in Alexandria. You know, because of my parents' involvement in so many ways of the community, and they were involved in their community in Lake Barcroft, where our home still remains. My mother's still living there. Their community involvement sort of inspired me, or maybe it's not even fair to say it inspired me. Maybe it was a lesson I just felt that was inculcated in me that we have a responsibility, because my siblings are all dedicated to helping their communities as well. And Alexandria was a natural one for me. My being drawn on to or placed on the Alexandria Hospital Board probably came about because my father died unexpectedly, and he was so involved there. So I was invited to begin to serving on committees, and eventually rose to being chairman of the board for 3 years there. And it was a natural fit. I do think I accomplished a lot there, but I know the reason I accomplished more than probably most could is because I came out of the medical community. So I think I had the trust of the medical staff that helped do things that we probably might not otherwise, especially being a lawyer. It's a little surprising that I could get the medical staff to rally around the board and management. But because, again, the relationships, it probably is counted as much for the success as anything else. It's hard to ascribe to the legend part, because you start to feel like you're being thought of in the past tense. So I'm not quite there yet, and I have a 12-year-old at home that doesn't like that thought either, nor a wife who likes that thought. The living part I can embrace a lot, and I hope that living part is extended for many, many years and many more things that I can accomplish and do in the community. But what I see as a value to it, which I'll be honest, I didn't know a lot about it till recently, but I do know a lot of those who are past legends, and I think that they provide an incredible example to people in the community. And it's nice to learn of those, by those examples, other than at some eulogy for them. It's nice to learn and then be able to talk to them and find out why they went about doing what they did. I think it can provide a great resource to the community while they're still alive. So I'm glad that the legend part is not tied to age or the fact that you are not alive. I guess what I would tell them about the living legend is something that I hadn't really thought about before, and that is how valuable a resource it is for the city. And it's a resource both for present and the future that you can actually find. One of the things in the legal profession and others, they have mentors. And that helps a lot of younger lawyers, for instance, in my profession, to give them some guidance. And quite frankly, I wish when I started my own firm after clerking for 2 federal judges, the Judges Bryans here in Alexandria, and with their encouragement, I hung out a shingle, but I didn't have the mentoring around me. It wasn't as pronounced as it is now, and it would have been nice to have somebody to ask those questions, the questions that arose in the practice and how I might want to go about it. And I think in whatever you're doing in the community, it's nice to have people who have been acknowledged for having contributed in some way and have some skills. And so the Living Legend provides that. You can go to the website, you can find out the background of people. I will tell you one of the things that I have done on both the boards that I've chaired. In that same vein, I have requested that the resumes of each one of our members, board members, be circulated to everybody else. Because when somebody speaks up, I want the people on the board to know from where they're speaking, that what experience they bring to that board, so that it's given the respect that it's probably due, and they know it's not just some whimsical comment by somebody. And also it helps you when you're constructing a board to see what kind of experience you have or what you need. So obviously it's always helpful to know the background of people and who you might be able to go to, and to know that they're approachable. You don't have to remake the wheel all the time. In my community service, I think that the one thing that I've always strived to do, and that is in building a board that's effective and one that's effective in working with both the administration at, like for instance, at Alexandria Hospital, or the staff at Senior Services. You want to build a board that is effective, and in my mind, the only way you can be effective is to work collaboratively to build consensus. And if anyone were to look at my own resume, I can assure you, and this is not out of some sense of modesty, those accomplishments aren't mine individually. I don't think any of those could have been accomplished without the collaboration and the relationships of the other people. I mean, everything that I've done, that to the extent anybody thinks it's an accomplishment, either at Senior Services or Alexandria or on the board or with the staff, it's all been built on the shoulders of the other people on the board, the other board members, the staff that I've worked with, the administration, and of course in my life it's built on the shoulders of both educators that I've had the privilege to be taught by, as well as friends and certainly family. I don't think anybody can really attain success without having the insights and of others to work with them in a compromising way to bring about a solution. And I'm a lawyer, so I guess I was sort of drawn to problem solving. And I've learned that you don't solve a problem on your own, and you don't do that on a board. And I've been absolutely privileged with having really bright people who are on the boards that I've served on, Alexandria, Senior Services, Inova, and I've encouraged all of them to speak up because I think all of them have something valuable to contribute. Well, I'm a lawyer. I guess I had a big mouth in school when I was growing up. I don't know. I mean, everybody kept saying, you ought to be a lawyer. All I know is my father was an OBGYN and worked very hard and was gone every third night and every third weekend, so I knew that's what I was not going to do. I was under the misapprehension or the misconception that lawyers don't have to put in the time, which you do have to do, so I really didn't avoid that per se. But I guess I was drawn to it because everybody said you ought to be a lawyer or a politician. I had no desire to be a politician. And have avoided that completely. But I've enjoyed the law, and I think one of the things that probably convinced me myself is that there are things you can do for the social good. Don't get me wrong, a lot of my cases are there to earn a living to support my family, but it gives you the freedom, hopefully if you're successful enough, to take on cases for what we call pro bono, or for people who have a real cause. I mean, one of my biggest cases was helping a family in a right-to-die case. The governor interfered with that decision to be made by someone who was in a persistent vegetative state. And you feel really good when you're able to accomplish a result that has lasting meaning. And so the law, has provided me that opportunity. And so it's probably what drew me to it. Ironically, I found that when I got into serving on boards and things, I enjoyed the business aspects as well. And I really enjoyed at Alexandria, for instance, turning the financials around and working with the staff there to find ways to do that. So I actually did better on my business boards than I did law boards, but I guess I was pushed in one direction by others. Oh, I think you always, I've raised 5 children, 2 stepchildren and 3 children. That's probably about as big a challenge as there can be. A challenge I think I had to overcome was not going into medicine. I think my grandfather was the medical examiner in D.C. My father was a physician in Alexandria. My father, I think, would have loved for one of us to become a physician. My older brother would have been the natural one, and he didn't go. But as he says, he serves on the University of Chicago's health board and the health boards in his city. And as he tells everybody, it's the penance we pay for not following my father's wishes. But it's turned out just fine, regardless of the fact that we didn't go into it. My father did make this desperate move as I was a week away from going to law school when he realized my older brother was not going to go stay in medicine, that he made an effort to induce me into it by inviting me to see a D&C and a hysterectomy, which did not convince me to go that route. You ask how I would like to be remembered. I guess probably the most important thing is for my kids to have good memories and to think highly of their father, their mother. But not to be superficial about it, I think of all the things I've done, I probably have enjoyed, and it was in the article, I've enjoyed coaching youth basketball. And I've really it's sort of a break from everything else. It's been a real thrill. And I hope that those children, some of whom are much older now. Matter of fact, one of the young girls that I coached her father when he was in youth basketball at MacArthur. So it's been a long road for me coaching all of my kids. And just not my kids, it's other kids. And I've really relished that. And it's something that I actually learned in coaching them that I think translated into how I did things on boards. Watching the girls who I coached last night, for instance, I've emphasized throughout the years of coaching them that it's not what you do individually, it's what you do to help your teammate. It's the success of the team comes as a team, not as one individual. And that in the early years, winning's not the important thing. It's playing the game well. And if you play the game well, you can take pride. But success will come if you hold to those principles. And The youngest girls, the earliest teams that I taught, we won eventually a couple of championships, and it was great. And I still know those young women today and their children. And that's probably my fondest memory of anything. So to look back and know that you can coach youth and get something from them. I certainly got something from them because not to diminish their individual attributes, but as individuals, they had some talent, but as a team, they were awesome. If you want to make a difference in the community, or a difference in your life, excuse me, obviously your first dedication has to be your family. That's your responsibility, to raise your children and to have a good family life. And that's probably the hardest thing for, I think, people to do. It's a challenge. But I think you need to look beyond that as well, and I think it's looking into your community. And if you really want to feel like you've accomplished something, I think you're going to get that if you give back to the community. I don't see how anyone can go through life without looking to your neighbor, to your left, to your right, across the street, across the railroad tracks, and not reaching out to help those, especially when you have more benefits than others. There's a sad history in our world today where 2.5 billion people, 40% of the wealth or of those 40% of our population is surpassed by the wealth of the 85 richest people. That's tragic, and that means that there are a lot of people who are in great need. And if you're not one of the 85, which would be great if you were, but we're all very, or have great success compared to those 40%, and we need to reach out to help them. Again, it was just by chance that I was born at Scott Air Force Base outside of St. Louis, in East St. Louis. I actually worked for the congressman from there for 2 summers because he happened to be a neighbor of ours at Lake Parkcroft, so I could say I was from the district. I think I was in the district all of 7 months. But I've been back. Driving back to school in California, I stopped and saw Scott Air Force Base just to see where I was born. My father was stationed there for a short period of time as a medical doctor delivering babies, and so that was the only reason I was the only one born out of the D.C. area. Most of my kids and my brothers and sisters were born in Alexandria Hospital. But by coincidence, my birth certificate is signed by an Alexandria doctor who was out there at the same time and came back here to practice. So it's a bizarre irony, but it is signed by an Alexandria physician. To understand the merger of Alexandria and Inova, you have to understand the history here. Alexandria Hospital is the oldest hospital in the area. It has incredible firsts. I don't know if you know, but the Alexandria Hospital is the first hospital to have emergency physicians as a specialty. And consequently, all emergency rooms in the country are to follow what's called the Alexandria Plan. In addition to that, we were one of the first to do epidurals in pregnancies. There are many standards and firsts by Alexandria Hospital. When the area started to grow, we set up Fairfax Hospital, and it was really staffed by Alexandria physicians and seated, if you will, by the medical community in Alexandria. Well, now, as you now know, Fairfax has grown to be maybe the best medical facility in the entire area, and eventually it grew into the Inova system. If truth be known, when I was chairing the Alexandria Hospital Board, it was at a time where there was a great change in the healthcare industry in the early 90s. And what I sought to do was to bring us up to speed. And one of the things I did was, one, to make sure that there was a better collaboration between our medical staff and our administration and the board. And then I took groups of those around the country to places where medical facilities were already excelling. and had already made the transitions, and we could learn from it. And we came back here and we turned Alexandria around to a very profitable position very quickly. My dream, though, was to set up a competing system to Inova, to merge with Arlington Hospital and maybe pick up Prince William, Potomac, because competition is I think, breeds better changes and success, et cetera. And also, they weren't going to allow a monopoly in insurance industries and in the healthcare industry. And we came close to doing that with Arlington, but then they eventually wanted to bring in a for-profit as a partner to that, HCA, Columbia HCA, and I was totally opposed to that, and we backed out of the negotiations. And turned out Arlington went with them. That failed for them. They got in Columbia HCA got in criminal trouble. We made the right decision. We had talked to Inova before that, and after we went into this other route, and I think they saw how we turned things around in a couple of years, they came back to us. And it was a much different negotiation at that time, and we were very compatible. And being a standalone was not something that a hospital would be able to succeed as a standalone in that environment. And we worked out a wonderful arrangement with Inova, and it turned out to be very successful for us. It gave us financial resources we didn't otherwise have. We were able to assimilate into programs there. They were able to adopt programs that we were running effectively. We all seeded the boards throughout the system, and it just turned out to be a very successful collaboration or merger. I think they hesitate to call it a merger. We call it a merger. We acquired them. You know, the bittersweet aspect of this nomination is the fact that it came from Vola Lawson. Vola has been a dear friend, somebody I met very early on. Of course, watching her career, I mean, you know, as legends go, she is the iconic legend, and I don't deserve to be in the same category with her at all. But the fact that she nominated me is probably as big a compliment as I've ever had. And she's such a wonderful person, and I don't think anybody who was really wanted to accomplish something in the city in the last several decades did it without conferring with Vola. So the fact that she died recently makes this very bittersweet for me, because it's a sad recollection that she won't be there. I don't deserve to be in the same category with Vola Lawson. I mean, that's the type of person, if you want to look to as a legend, both when she was alive and now passed. So it's sad. Actually, it caught more because I was in the legal community, and I was doing things one time with the Women's Commission. I was just there and around town, and we would see each other, we would talk things, and then when I was on the Alexandria board, part of the support, this Alexandria Hospital is not a city hospital. We were independent, and so we had a lot of negotiations to revisit that relationship, and that meant dealing with Vola, and we worked everything out very well. Then there was a lot of competition. Before we joined Inova, they tried to compete more strongly with us by taking over another hospital and compete with the emergency medicine and where the ambulances would be taking patients, et cetera, and we were able to garner the full support of the city and the city council, and especially through the efforts of Vola. So I worked a lot with Vola during the 3 years, well, the years I was on the board and the 3 years that I chaired the board. And thereafter, when I was on the Inova board for 9, 10 years, Bill Ewell was on the board with me, and when we had things we needed to talk about in the city, Vola was our resource. With regard to quotes that I either carry around, I started in college days, which were the virile days of the 1960s and all that was going on in both civil rights and the war, et cetera. I was a great reader of editorial commentary, and I would cut out quotes and pace them on the board. I know before I got married in law school, my roommate was a more traditional person, or his mother certainly was. I think she was shocked when she came in and saw that I had the whole living room plastered with quotes, probably ones she might not have even enjoyed. But I was very much of an activist in college and in law school over whatever the issues of the day were. And so I started collecting quotes, and when I saw a quote that I really liked, I would cut it out and keep it somewhere, and sometimes carry it around. And quite frankly, looking at those quotes occasionally keeps me balanced and reins in my testosterone when I start to behave in an uncivil way. It reminds me of how I should be acting. Insofar as the particular quote about the rent you pay on earth, I mean, I think that everybody has an obligation, should consider themselves to have an obligation to give back, because there is nothing that any of us have accomplished on our own. We've gotten it on the backs of other people. And so you really need to give back. And so to me, it's a good reminder. The other quote is, it covers a multitude of sins, and I must say, that one probably motivates me as much as anything else. I don't have any doubt, with all the flaws that I have, that you can try to at least compensate by doing some good. With regard to teamwork, I mean, I actually wrote down when I attended this symposium that Stanford ran on leading matters, what I felt were the principles that should guide me. And they include the following. One, understand the landscape. It's obviously very important. But then establish good board composition. And I take great pride in the fact that I have been able to surround myself with incredibly insightful and intelligent people. Lead by tone from the top. I think you need to set the tone. It's very important. Be proactive is to have the board work done before board meetings, and to establish a system where board meetings are just to review what your committee has done. It's really a matter of delegation, which I think is extremely important. Set an agenda. Encourage opinions laced with compromise. I invite everybody. I want everybody on the board to speak out, or on the staff. No opinion should go without being accorded respect. Manage the trickle down. That's to avoid disagreement so it doesn't result in animosity. Create an amiable environment for the discourse. Set a high bar, but don't set one that is so low that it's easy to achieve, so you can think you're successful when you're not. Promote all opinions. Invite individual insights and perspective, but all guided to a collective decision to achieve success. And as I said earlier, I think that that's what brings about, that's what teamwork is all about. And I know for a fact that there's nothing I have accomplished or could have accomplished if it wasn't for the fact that I surrounded myself with very insightful, intelligent people who were there not to build their resume, but build to work, and had the same goal or objective, and that is to help others. One of the things that it's a truism. When I was a child, Washington, D.C. was a very small city. I mean, and my grandfather being the coroner or the medical examiner, you knew a lot of people. You knew it was a small city. I mean, my parents went to GW. A lot of the people were still around. Alexandria was even smaller. D.C. is now a huge metropolitan. You don't know everybody. When I grew up in high school in Alexandria, everybody knew everybody. And it was the medical community, but there was a cross-fertilization with the legal community and other professionals and the politicians. But Alexandria, like D.C., is a huge, much bigger city today. And it's very difficult to obtain all of that information. And that's what Living Legends is providing, that opportunity to get at that resource and see that. And I think it becomes more and more important every day the larger the city becomes. Because even in the not-for-profit world, in what we do at Senior Services with Meals on Wheels, there are other organizations that are delivering meals. One of the things that I've tried to set about doing is to work with some of these other organizations to see if we can't work more collaboratively. There's a very small, not so deep well in this city to support all of these charitable organizations. And so we need to run all of them collectively more efficiently because there's only so many wells that you can dip into here. And so we need to look at that. And this provides the entree to finding out people in those organizations and meet with them and see if we can't make it an even better resources for the city. Your wonderful idea about this is what's gotten it started, but it's still in the incubation period. It's still been around for very short, it's a baby. And we're now all becoming aware of the fact that it exists and getting to know more and more people. So I think it's something that will grow, it should grow, and it will certainly benefit the city if it does grow. As I said, going back to mentoring, what a better resource is there than to go to there to find out if it's, whether it be the arts, whether it be law, whether it be charities, to go and find people who can help guide you. And again, establishing relationships. They may lead you to other people who are up and coming who would be complementary to whatever you're trying to do on the particular board that you may serve. But it's still a baby, and it still needs to be, the knowledge of it needs to be spread throughout the city. Coaching my children in basketball forced me to create time in my life to spend with them. So it's always something I'll always cherish, and I'm glad that I did. And it also helped me build relationships with their friends to help me actually get me to know my own children better, because I got to see what type of friends they had, how their friends saw them. So contributing that time to youth basketball has been a great joy. I mean, I've gotten much more out of that. Actually, I've gotten much more out of the boards that I've served on and chaired, and coaching basketball. I've gotten more out of it than I've given to any of those people. It's just been a great reward, and I'm actually writing a book about my oldest daughter, who's now 36, the experience coaching her basketball team. It's sort of like a female Hoosiers. And if I can just find more time to finish it,